You are butternuts.
Welcome to my build showcase for my Archon of Chayula and Brutus Lead Sprinkler Autobomber. So the core mechanics of this build revolve around the Brutus Lead Sprinkler. It's basically a strength stacking item, and it gives you two important things. One is added flat damage for every 25% strength you have, as well as it triggers Molten Shower. Molten Shower is an attack that triggers when you hit an enemy with any attack. So this is not a local attack, it can be any skill that you have. So you can proc it with Archon of Chayula, which is what I'm using primarily to do so. So when you are stacking a stat in Path of Exile, you want to get as much benefit from it as possible. So the weapons will give added flat fire damage, and then my armor from Iron will give increased damage in the form of spell damage, and then my helmet, the Crown of Eyes, will change that to apply to attacks. So that's the core functionality on how I get my damage. And then to cover up defenses, I have this jewel, the Timeless Jewel Heroic Tragedy. It needs to be for Verona. This jewel gives me increased energy shield per strength. So that covers a small part of, well, a major part of my defenses. Normally, you need to hit something with an attack to proc the Molten Burst, which is the main source of the damage of this build. Normally you can use mace skills like this, and they're a bit slow. You can make them faster, but I instead am using Archon of Chayula. What Archon of Chayula does is you become, you get the Archon buff, and it will proc Chayula's will every 3 seconds. And this creates a giant tornado, and it'll chase enemies down and continue to proc the Molten Shower, and hit the enemies. Archon of Chayula is a glory skill, so you don't have 100% uptime. So to kind of avoid downtime and not have to press that many buttons, I also am using Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry is also a glory skill, but when you press it, wherever you walk, it'll explode, and those can proc the Molten Shower as well. And then to proc even more, I'm also using Blasphemy and Repulsion. Repulsion is a curse that causes enemies to explode and deal damage, attack damage, so that also procs as well. And then they also spawn Living Lightning, which will continue to proc the Repulsion curse and continue to proc the Molten Shower. So those are the two main portions for, or the main core mechanics for the damage portion. Now, to make the build kind of run smooth, I'm using this right here called Domination. It allows me to have Archon buffs up without any recovery period. So normally an Archon buff, as you can see here, by default it lasts for 10 seconds, and then there is a recovery period of 20 seconds. But if you have this anointed, you can avoid the recovery period so that you can have almost, I'd say, 80 to 90% uptime on this, on Archon of Chayula. Archon of Chayula, to proc it though, you do require to do chaos damage so that it can gain glory. So to do so, you need a source of chaos damage somewhere. I currently have two sources of chaos damage. One is from this rune, and the other one is from this jewel. As long as you have at least one of these, you will be able to get glory and continue to be able to use Archon of Chayula. Now, to proc or to get glory for Ancestral Cry, you need to ignite enemies. And Molten Shower does ignite enemies quite often. So in general, you do have uptime on at least one of the two glory skills, about 90% of the time. So how this build maps is generally what you'll do is you'll go through and get enough glory for the first proc of Archon of Chayula. Once you have that, that will stay up for about 17 seconds. And it will spawn tornadoes like this. And the tornadoes will last for about 17 seconds as well. So as you kill enemies, you'll see that the icon there is also gaining glory. If there's enough mob density, you can just use Archon of Chayula again, and there won't be any downtime. But sometimes you'll have downtime when there's no mobs around. So that's what Ancestral Cry is for. You can use that and you'll create explosions when you walk, and that will also proc the Molten Shower, and then you'll have the Archon up again. And then in the case where they both drop off, let's see if it'll drop off here. Yeah, so both of them will drop off here. You can just throw out some more Molten Blasts, and you can reproc it again. So most of the time you will have about 90% uptime on the skill, and you won't really have to press that many buttons. So the budget for this build is about 25 divines, and The main reason for the cost is this node right here. To anoint this, you need Contempt, Suffering, and Isolation, and these are the 3 most expensive liquid emotions. Without that, the build feels really, really bad because of the recovery period. So yeah, you can play it without it, but it definitely does not feel as good. One note for Dominion is you can access this without an anoint, but it's currently unknown on which nodes you need to unlock it. So in the current update, if you have specific nodes allocated, you can have access to the hidden nodes in between them. So for this one, if you have the First Principle of Hollow and First Teachings of the Keeper, it unlocks a node in between right here. So it should be the same for Dominion, but I don't know which ones you need to unlock it at this moment. I tried a few different Archon nodes, like these ones here, but that didn't have any effect. So it's probably hidden through some of the other Archon nodes or something around here. But yes, if you can find the combination to unlock it, you don't need the anoint. And then my gear itself, I only put maybe 3 to 5 divines in it. All the uniques, they cost maybe less than a divine actually. Most of the cost went into the rares, just because you need a lot of resistances in them. Other than that, the main costs for the build are the jewels. This jewel right here, at the time of this video, it costs about 5 divines to get a Verano one. And then these jewels here, Sapphire with maximum energy shield and increased strength. These can go anywhere from about 50 exalts to about 2 to 3 divines. If you get them with 1% increased strength, you can get them in the 50 exalt range. But if you try to get 2%, it's going to be 2 to 3 divines. But you can get the strength alone without the maximum energy shield, and instead just use the Deli Emotion here. This one you can just craft on the maximum energy shield afterwards. So outside of the cost of the build, you cannot start this this build as it is. You need to unlock Archon of Chayula by completing the Breach storyline in the endgame. Once you complete the Breach storyline, you can talk to the Dreamer and become the Archon of Chayula, and that node will be unlocked. So going over the passive tree, starting off with the Archon of Chayula. This is the one that gives you the skill to create the tornadoes. And then Chayula's gifts. This one is just basically chaos res. Yeah, you need it to get to the Archon of Chayula, so just take that. We're also taking Sap of Nightmares for Leech. I am converting this Leech from Life Leech into Energy Shield Leech, just for better feels, I guess. Energy Shield without any fast recharge or a form of Leech, it does feel pretty bad, especially if you don't have any evasion. So definitely do recommend this setup. We are taking Into the Breach just for extra leech from the red flames, as the red flames give you maximum life, which is converted into ES, and then it also gives you the purple flames, which give you a damage buff. And then getting into the tree, it's a fairly basic tree. We're just pathing around to as many strength nodes as possible and as many jewel sockets as possible, and the attributes. So we go all the way around here to get increased attribute percentage, damage for lowest attribute, damage, increased damage per strength, beef, and yeah, just lots and lots of strength, as much as possible here and here. Next, we focus on getting as much defense as possible. The only real defense you can get on this build is energy shield. So as I said before, we're getting it through this node here, this keystone here, as well as various points on the tree. Here, this cluster here, around the start area. Yeah, those are the main ones. And then the next focus is skill effect duration. So skill effect duration scales in two different ways. There's the Archon buff duration. So we get that here. That gives us an extra 6 seconds. And then skill effect duration. This does not affect the duration of the Archon, but it affects the duration of the tornadoes that come out. So for Chayula's will, the tornado duration is affected by skill effect duration. So the longer this lasts, the more damage you can do with the buff down as well. So in the last 3 seconds, if you proc, in the last 3 seconds of the Archon of Chayula buff, if you proc a tornado, that tornado will last 16 seconds and it'll still chase enemies, and you'll still be able to get glory for Archon of Chayula. So having as much duration on both of those as possible helps give as much uptime as possible. There's also this node here, or this wheel here, if you have enough points. I'm currently only level 92, so I can't take that right now. And then we're also getting as much speed nodes as possible, just movement speed. We have some here. There is some more via this here. And you can also get these nodes here and here. But I opted not to grab those at this moment, just because I think I'm pretty good right now for them. But if you want to move faster, you can definitely do that, especially this one. And then we also get ailment immunity for Ignite through this cluster here. If you've played an energy shield build before, Ignite is pretty painful, especially burning ground. So it's good to have immunity through either your charms or through something like this. And then finally, I'm also taking this 1 point for Rage on Hit. This does not proc for the Molten Shower, but it does proc for the tornadoes. So as long as the tornadoes are up, you generally have 30 rage, maximum rage, whatever your max rage is. As for jewels, I'm mainly using 3 different types of jewels. The first one is Heart of the Well. Heart of the Well has a bunch of different desecrated mods on it. I think the most important ones that you can get, there's 5. 4 of them are these ones, so extra fire damage, so you can get more ignites, extra chaos damage, so that you can proc glory for Archon of Chayula, increased skill effect duration for the tornadoes, chance to inflict ailments, so that it helps for Ancestral Cry, and then movement speed, which I didn't get. The next one, as I said before, is the Heroic Tragedy. You want to get the one for Verona, so that you can socket it in here, and Resonance will turn into Black Scythe Training. If you can find a good one, there might be some good nodes here that you can grab as well. But currently, I'm just using it for Black Scythe Training. And then lastly is a bunch of Sapphire Jewels for increased strength and maximum energy shield. You can try to find some other mods like increased elemental or increased chaos damage, but I just didn't bother because the build already has a lot of damage and it seemed unnecessary. And then to go over the gear, as I said before, the most important ones are the unique items here. So I have 2 Brutus lead sprinklers. In them, I have a Squall's Rune of the Sky for extra damage of all ailments. And then in the other one, I have a famous Rune of Agony for more chaos damage. For the helmet slot, I have a Crown of Eyes with greater iron rune just to get more energy shield. The gear doesn't really allow for a lot of flat energy shield. Ideally, you would try to get some on the rings as well, but I didn't bother yet. I need to make some upgrades. So yeah, I put it there. You can also use a strength rune if you think that your defenses are good. Then I'm using Astramentus with the Dominion node allocated, as well as attribute quality. For the chest, I have Iron Grasp. These are cheap, so you can just find a bunch of them and corrupt them until you have 3 sockets. Same with Crown of Eyes and the glove slot. Those are very cheap as well, so you can just keep grabbing more and then corrupt them until you have 2 sockets, and 3. I put strength ones in here, but it might be good to look at curse immunity as well, just because damage is not really an issue. Also, you do want to rune master the chest so you can get a little bit more armor and evasion on it. It's not that impactful though, but it's better than just bigger numbers. For the glove socket, I have these. Mainly it's just for the life leech to energy leech, but it does provide a little bit of lightning res as well, and lightning damage, so that you can proc living lightning. For the boots, it's just as much resistances as possible and movement speed, and then as much energy shield as possible, because this is basically your only slot for energy shield other than the helmet. For the rings, you want to get as much resistance as possible, and on one of them have leech physical attack as life. This also applies to chaos damage, since we are taking this ascendancy here. So you need one source of leech on one of the rings at least. Otherwise, you just want as much resistances and, if possible, strength or rarity. And then finally, the belt slot. I'm using this belt, same thing, it's just for resistances and strength. If possible, get some life on there too, is the charms. I'm using these 2 charms right now. One is for freeze immunity, shield recharge start on use whenever you get frozen. And the other one is for bleeding immunity. If I had another slot, I would use the poison immunity one and some flasks. This is not required, but I had it for my previous build, so I'm just using it. So for further upgrades, I'm thinking of, if I ever have enough currency, to get a Mage Blood with the evasion flask, both evasion flasks on there, just so that I can run Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance, and that should give a lot more defense. I think that's probably the best upgrade that you can make for defense wise, as this build does not have very good defense at all. It's just that 5,000 life pool and evasion or energy shield pool. There's not really much else going on for defense, so if you can't recover, you're pretty much dead. So that would probably be the best upgrade there. For offensive upgrades, one thing that you can do is go Adorned, just so that you can have more strength on the jewels. And it should be relatively easy to craft magic jewels with energy shield and strength. The challenge though is there aren't any percent strength jewels available that are magic right now. I was looking at the market and I think you would have to find them somehow by yourself. So yeah, another good upgrade would be the Zoph's Pyre. Zoph's Pyre gives the ability to chaos skills to ignite, as well as 40% damage of fire as extra chaos. And since most of our damage is coming from fire, that's just a straight up huge damage boost there. But you do need 2 of them, 1 in each molten shower, each of the molten showers. And preferably, you'd probably want 1 in Archon of Chayula as well. It's currently quite expensive though, so I haven't gotten it yet. I think the last time I looked, it was 17 divines. Otherwise, you can also do Rakiata's Flow, but that's even more prohibitively expensive. Some other upgrades that are available is the legacy runes.
Yes.
The Alder legacy runes. Where is it? There it is. So this allows you to pull out or to convert a unique item into a rune. And I think the best one for this build is the Greymake helmet, because that gives you 50 all attributes. And that would be pretty good. But as you can see, it's 88 divines as well. And I think the Mage Blood would be the best upgrade overall, as damage is definitely not an issue on this build right now. Alternatives. Some alternatives that you can do for the build is you can get 3 Grand Spectrums for a Sapphire, and they'll give you a bunch of alt-res that will make your gearing a little bit easier. So you can use either cheaper gear or better gear in the slots here, because you'll require less resistances. I think I'll eventually transfer over that, just so that I can get some better rings and some better boots for more energy shield. Some other alternatives that you can do is to just forget about the leech setup and instead use convalescence and more faster recharge. You can get those on jewels. So that's a pretty decent setup, I think. But I just wanted to try the leech setup to see how that is, and it feels okay. If you were to get rid of the leech, you could either go for all purple flames instead of that, or try to do a setup with volatility. With volatility, I haven't tried it, but I'm told from what I've read online, if you take this node here, it caps out your volatility at 30. But what that means is the actual buff stack is still capped at 200, but the volatility itself is capped at 30. So every time it gets to 30, it'll automatically pop. So it should be a lot smoother than having to activate the volatility or wait until it activates. So yeah, that's one alternative that you can do as well. One other thing is Original Sin. You can also convert all the fire damage to chaos, and that should do a lot more damage, because Archon of Chayula, it also withers on hit, and wither is a huge damage more multiplier for chaos damage. But the only thing for using Original Sin is you still need a way to ignite if you want to use Ancestral Cry. So if you do equip Original Sin and you have a source of added fire damage, you'll still do fire damage, but I don't know how reliable this much fire damage is for ignites. But if you also get Zoth's Pyre, that should be enough. Zoth's Pyre also allows you to ignite with chaos damage, so this will be the ignite pool. And the really good thing about going Original Sin is now that you have a lot more chaos damage, you'll leech a lot more. So that makes these gloves a lot more effective, and you should be a lot more tanky. So I'll probably try that eventually as well. So yeah, that's the build. I really like it. It's really smooth, very minimal buttons to press, and it's very strong. Cheers. Thanks for coming and watching this long. Have a good day, guys.